Ladies and gentlemen, you are enough. It sounds simple, doesn't it? But it's one of the hardest truths for us to believe about ourselves. Every day we're bombarded with messages, subtle and not so subtle, that tell us we need to be more successful, more attractive, more productive, more perfect. The world seems to thrive on convincing us that who we are, as we are, isn't enough. But that's not the truth. The truth is, you don't need to prove your worth to anyone. You don't need to hustle for your value. You are enough just by being you. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't about settling or giving up on growth. It's not about saying, well, I'll just stay where I am and that's fine. Growth is essential, and ambition can be a beautiful thing. But growth and striving for something greater should never come from a place of feeling like you're incomplete or unworthy. It should come from the understanding that you're already whole. And from that foundation, you're choosing to expand and build. That's a radically different mindset. It's not about fixing yourself because you're broken. It's about exploring what more you can create because you're enough. We have this deeply ingrained habit of attaching our self-worth to outcomes. If I land that promotion, then I'll feel like I've made it. If I hit this weight goal, then I'll be confident. If I can just make everyone around me happy, then I'll know I'm a good person. But let me tell you something. There is no finish line to this race. The truth is, you're chasing something that you already have within you. You don't need to achieve, change, or accomplish to validate your worthiness. Here's where it gets tricky. This idea goes against everything we've been conditioned to believe. From an early age, we learn to measure ourselves by comparison. We compare our grades, our looks, our careers, our relationships, and even our happiness to the highlight reels of others. Social media has only amplified this tendency. We see curated lives that seem flawless, and we think, why can't I be more like that? But the thing about comparison is that it's a thief. It steals your joy, your confidence, and your ability to see your own brilliance. The only person you should ever compare yourself to is who you were yesterday. And even then, do it with compassion, not judgment. Being enough also means letting go of perfection. Let's be honest. How many of us walk through life thinking, I'll finally feel good about myself once I get it all right? But perfection is a moving target, one you'll never hit, and the pursuit of it can leave you feeling exhausted, empty, and disconnected. Here's the paradox. It's in your imperfections that your humanity shines. It's in your flaws that your authenticity lives. And it's your authenticity, not your perfection, that makes you truly extraordinary. You are enough doesn't mean you're exempt from hard work. It doesn't mean you should stop dreaming big or reaching higher. But it does mean that your worth isn't hanging in the balance, waiting for someone or something to validate it. It's not tied to your success, your status, or your mistakes. Think about this. When you're with a close friend or loved one, do you value them only because of what they've accomplished? Or how perfect they seem? Of course not. You value them because of who they are. The same is true for you. You are loved, you are valued, and you are enough simply because you exist. When you start to believe this, you show up differently. You stop needing external validation to feel secure. You stop bending yourself into shapes that don't fit just to gain approval. You start saying, this is me. Take it or leave it. And here's the best part. When you operate from a place of knowing your worth, you invite others to do the same. You create an environment where people feel safe to be themselves, where they don't have to perform or prove or hide. That's the ripple effect of owning your enoughness. It doesn't just change your life. It changes the lives around you. There's a freedom in this. Imagine waking up each day knowing that no matter what happens, whether you stumble, whether you soar, whether the day goes as planned or completely sideways, you're still enough. Imagine what it would feel like to let go of the pressure to be more, to do more, to have more. What would it be like to walk through life with the unshakable belief that you're already whole, that nothing needs to be added to make you complete? So here's what I want you to tell yourself every single day. I am enough. Say it, believe it, and live it. Because when you do, you'll discover that everything you've been searching for outside of yourself has been within you all along. You are enough. Courage over comfort is a choice we face every single day, whether we realize it or not. Most of us spend our lives trying to avoid discomfort. It's human nature. We're wired to seek safety, to stick with what's familiar. But here's the thing. Growth, real growth, doesn't happen in comfort zones. Nothing meaningful, nothing transformative has ever come from playing it safe and staying small. Courage, on the other hand, is the gateway to everything you truly want in life. It's the decision to step into the unknown, to risk failure, to say, I don't know how this will turn out, but I'm going to try anyway. Here's the truth. Courage isn't a one-time act. It's not about those grand, sweeping moments we see in movies, the dramatic leap of faith or the heroic rescue. No, courage is much quieter than that. It's showing up every day and choosing to be seen. It's having the difficult conversation instead of avoiding it. It's standing up for what you believe in, even if your voice shakes. It's admitting, I don't have all the answers, and still moving forward. Courage isn't about being fearless. It's about feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And let me be clear, courage will make you uncomfortable. That's the price of growth. Discomfort is the evidence that you're stretching yourself, that you're stepping into a space where you're no longer in control of every variable. But discomfort is not a bad thing. It's a signal that you're alive, that you're evolving, that you're leaning into what matters. So many of us avoid discomfort because we equate it with danger. But discomfort isn't danger, it's just unfamiliar. And the unfamiliar is where your potential lives. Think about the moments in your life when you've been most proud of yourself. I guarantee those moments didn't come from playing it safe. They came from taking a risk, from daring to try, from putting yourself out there even when you weren't sure how it would end. Maybe it was starting a new job or leaving one that didn't serve you anymore. Maybe it was telling someone how you really felt, even if you didn't know how they'd respond. Whatever it was, you stepped into courage, and that moment became a defining part of who you are. But let's not romanticize it. Courage doesn't always feel good in the moment. Sometimes it feels terrifying. Sometimes it feels like your heart is going to beat out of your chest, like you're walking a tightrope with no safety net. And sometimes it doesn't work out the way you hoped. That's the risk of courage. But here's the thing. Even when you fail, even when it doesn't go as planned, you're still better for having tried. You're stronger, you're braver, and you've proven to yourself that you can survive discomfort. That's a lesson no one can take away from you. Courage also has a way of building on itself. The more you practice it, the easier it becomes to choose it again and again. It's like a muscle. You don't wake up one day and suddenly become fearless. You build it, one small act of bravery at a time. Each time you step into courage, you expand what you're capable of. What once seemed impossible starts to feel within reach. And before you know it, you're living a life that once felt too big to imagine. But courage isn't just about personal growth, it's also about connection. When you show up with courage, you inspire others to do the same. Think about the people who have impacted you the most, the ones who've made you feel seen, heard, and understood. I bet they were people who had the courage to be real with you, to share their struggles and their truths. Courage is contagious. When you choose it, you create a ripple effect that touches everyone around you. So how do you start? How do you choose courage over comfort when it feels so much easier to stay where you are? You start small. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. Maybe it's speaking up in a meeting when you'd usually stay quiet. Maybe it's setting a boundary with someone who's been taking too much from you. Maybe it's trying something new even if you're not good at it yet. Whatever it is, take one step and then another. Courage isn't about being ready, it's about being willing. The truth is, comfort is tempting, but it's not where your best life lives. Your best life is on the other side of courage. It's in the risks you take, the leaps of faith you dare to make, and the moments when you choose to show up, even when it's hard. So today and every day, ask yourself, will I choose courage or comfort? And then, no matter how scary it feels, lean into the choice that scares you just a little, because that's where the magic happens. Embrace vulnerability is a phrase we hear a lot, but what does it actually mean? For most of us, vulnerability feels like the last thing we want to lean into. It feels exposed, raw, uncomfortable. We equate vulnerability with weakness, with putting ourselves in situations where we could get hurt, judged, or rejected. And so we build walls, we put on armor, we tell ourselves, if I just stay guarded, I'll be safe. No one can hurt me if I don't let them see the real me. But let me ask you, is that really living? Is that how you want to go through life? Protected, maybe, but disconnected, unseen, and hiding parts of yourself that are longing to be shared. Here's the truth about vulnerability. It's not weakness. It's the bravest thing you'll ever do. It takes courage to show up as you are, with all your imperfections, all your fears, all your doubts. It takes courage to say, this is me, and I'm not going to pretend to be someone else just to make you more comfortable. Vulnerability is strength, because it requires you to take risks. The risk of being misunderstood, the risk of being rejected, the risk of failure. But in those risks, something incredible happens. You create the possibility for connection, for growth, for authenticity. And isn't that what we're all looking for? To feel seen, to feel known, to feel like who we are is enough? Think about the relationships that matter most to you. What makes them meaningful? It's not the surface-level conversations, the small talk, or the filtered versions of yourselves. It's the moments when you've shared something real, something honest. It's when you've been vulnerable, and they've met you in that space with empathy and understanding. That's where connection lives. That's where trust is built. Vulnerability isn't about oversharing or spilling your guts to everyone you meet. It's about being real. It's about letting down the walls and saying, this is my truth, and I'm willing to share it with you. But let's be honest, vulnerability is terrifying. It's scary to put yourself out there without knowing how you'll be received. And sometimes it doesn't go the way you hoped. Sometimes people don't meet you with the understanding you were seeking. But even in those moments, vulnerability is worth it. Because even if it doesn't lead to the outcome you wanted, it leads to freedom. The freedom of knowing you were true to yourself. The freedom of not carrying the burden of pretending to be someone you're not. And that freedom is priceless. One of the hardest parts of vulnerability is letting go of the need for certainty. We all want guarantees, don't we? We want to know that if we put ourselves out there, it'll be worth it. That if we say how we really feel, it won't backfire. But life doesn't work that way. There are no guarantees. Vulnerability is about stepping into the unknown and trusting that no matter what happens, you'll be okay. It's about believing that you're resilient enough to handle whatever comes your way. And the truth is, you are. You've already survived moments that felt impossible. You've already faced challenges that tested your strength. Vulnerability doesn't weaken you. It reminds you of the strength you already have. When we avoid vulnerability, we also avoid the things that make life meaningful. We avoid love, because love requires us to open our hearts. We avoid pursuing our dreams, because chasing something you care about means risking failure. We avoid being ourselves, because showing up authentically means risking rejection. But in avoiding those risks, we miss out on the rewards. We miss out on the joy, the connection, the growth that comes from being fully alive. Vulnerability isn't just a part of life, it's the heartbeat of it. So how do we embrace vulnerability in a world that tells us to hide it? We start small. We start by being honest with ourselves about what we're feeling, about what we want, about what we're afraid of. Because if you can't be real with yourself, how can you be real with anyone else? Then we take little steps. Maybe it's sharing a piece of your story with someone you trust. Maybe it's asking for help when you need it, instead of trying to do it all on your own. Maybe it's saying, I don't know, or I'm sorry, or I love you. Vulnerability isn't about giant leaps. It's about small, consistent acts of courage. And here's the beautiful thing about vulnerability. It's a gift. When you choose to be vulnerable, you give others permission to do the same. You create a space where people feel safe to be real, to let down their walls, to show up as they are. That's how we build connection. That's how we build trust. And that's how we build a world where we don't have to go through life pretending to be something we're not. So today and every day, remind yourself that vulnerability isn't something to run from. It's something to run toward. It's where your strength lives, it's where your courage lives, and it's where your life begins. Mistakes are lessons, not failures. That simple shift in perspective changes everything. Yet for so many of us, mistakes carry this heavy weight. They feel like evidence that we're not good enough, that we're incapable, that we've fallen short of the expectations we or others have set. We tie our mistakes to our identity, as if messing up means there's something wrong with us. But the truth is, mistakes don't define you. What defines you is how you respond to them. Do you let them hold you back, or do you use them to propel yourself forward? Because every mistake carries within it the potential to teach you something, to grow you into a better version of yourself, if you're willing to see it that way. Here's the thing, nobody goes through life without making mistakes. Not one person. The most successful, the most admired, the most inspiring individuals you know, they've made mistakes, big ones. The difference is they didn't let those mistakes stop them. They didn't see them as the end of the road. They saw them as a step on the journey. When you look at mistakes through that lens, they lose their power to shame you. Instead, they become opportunities. They become teachers. They become proof that you're trying, that you're daring, that you're pushing beyond your limits. Because mistakes only happen when you're doing something. If you're never making mistakes, you're probably not taking enough risks. You're probably playing it too safe. But let's be honest, embracing mistakes is easier said than done. When we mess up, the first instinct is often to beat ourselves up. How could I have done that? What was I thinking? I should have known better. That internal critic has a way of magnifying every little thing, turning a single misstep into a catastrophic narrative about who we are. But here's what you have to remind yourself. You're not your mistakes. Your mistakes are just moments. They're snapshots of a specific time, under specific circumstances. They don't tell the whole story of who you are or what you're capable of. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall over and over again. But we don't look at those falls and think, wow, this kid's really bad at walking. We see it for what it is, part of the process, and we cheer them on because we know those falls are necessary. They're how the child figures out balance, coordination, strength. We don't judge them for falling. We celebrate the effort. So why don't we do the same for ourselves? Why do we look at our mistakes as failures instead of as part of our process of learning, growing, and becoming? There's something powerful about owning your mistakes. Not running from them, not covering them up, not pretending they didn't happen, just saying, yeah, I messed up, and here's what I'm going to do about it. Because when you own your mistakes, you take back control. You turn them from something that holds you down into something that lifts you up. And owning them doesn't mean dwelling on them. It doesn't mean carrying them around like a badge of shame. It means acknowledging them, learning from them, and then letting them go. Letting go is key. Some of us carry the weight of old mistakes for years, replaying them in our minds, wishing we could go back and change them. But that's not how life works. You can't change the past, but you can change how you move forward. You can ask yourself, what did this teach me? How can I use this experience to do better next time? Because every mistake has a lesson in it if you're willing to look for it. Sometimes the lesson is about patience. Sometimes it's about preparation. Sometimes it's about humility. But there's always a lesson. And here's another thing about mistakes. They make you human. They make you relatable. Nobody wants to connect with someone who seems perfect all the time. We connect through our imperfections, through our shared struggles, through the moments when we can say, I've been there too. Your mistakes don't make you less, they make you more. They make you more understanding, more empathetic, more resilient. They shape you in ways that success never could. So the next time you make a mistake, and you will because you're human, don't see it as a failure. See it as a chance to learn. See it as a moment to grow. And most importantly, give yourself grace. Treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer to someone you care about. Because you're going to mess up. You're going to fall short. And that's okay. It's not about being perfect. It's about being willing to try, to risk, to fail, and to get back up again. Mistakes are not the end of your story. They're a part of your story, and they're leading you towards something greater. So don't fear them. Don't hide from them. Embrace them for what they are, lessons that will guide you to where you're meant to be. Gratitude changes everything. It's one of those truths that feels almost too simple to be profound, and yet it has the power to transform the way we see the world and, more importantly, how we live in it. The problem is, we often overlook it. In the rush of daily life, in the grind of responsibilities, in the pursuit of what's next, gratitude can feel like a luxury we'll get to later. Once we've achieved the next goal, solved the next problem, or crossed the next finish line. But the truth is, gratitude isn't something to tack on once you've arrived. It's something that fuels the journey itself. It's what gives meaning to the process, even when the outcome isn't certain. When you approach life with gratitude, something shifts inside you. It doesn't mean you ignore the challenges or pretend everything is perfect. It means you choose to see the good alongside the hard. You choose to acknowledge the small moments, the little victories, the things that so easily go unnoticed. Because those things matter. The way the sun feels on your face in the morning, the sound of someone you love, laughing. The fact that no matter how hard things are right now, you have made it through every single tough moment you've ever faced. Those are things worth holding on to, worth celebrating, worth being thankful for. Gratitude isn't just about what's going right. It's about perspective. It's about saying, even though things aren't perfect, there is still good here. And when you practice that kind of gratitude, when you intentionally look for the good, it's amazing how much more you start to see. It's like training your brain to focus on what lifts you up instead of what drags you down. That doesn't mean you ignore problems or challenges, but it means you don't let them define your reality. Gratitude helps you zoom out and see the bigger picture. But here's the thing, gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's a practice. It's something you have to do deliberately, especially when it doesn't come easily, because let's face it, there are days when gratitude feels impossible, when life feels heavy, when you're overwhelmed, when nothing seems to be going your way. It can be hard to find something to be thankful for. But those are the moments when gratitude is most powerful. Those are the moments when gratitude becomes an act of defiance, a way of saying, this is hard, but it won't break me. There is still something here worth holding on to. Start small. You don't have to write a novel about everything you're grateful for. It could be as simple as pausing for a moment and thinking of one thing that made you smile today. Maybe it's the fact that you have people in your life who care about you. Maybe it's the way the rain sounds on the window, or the feeling of finishing something you didn't think you could. The point isn't to force yourself to feel good. It's to remind yourself that even on the hardest days, there's something worth appreciating. What's incredible about gratitude is how it ripples outward. When you're grateful, it affects how you show up for others. It makes you more patient, more present, more compassionate. And when you express gratitude, when you take the time to tell someone what they mean to you or how they've impacted your life, it strengthens your connection with them. It creates a bond that goes beyond words. A reminder that we're all in this together. And gratitude isn't just something you feel, it's something you share. And when you share it, it multiplies. But let's be clear, gratitude doesn't make life easier. It doesn't magically erase the challenges or take away the pain. What it does is give you the strength to keep going. It grounds you in what matters, even when everything else feels uncertain. It reminds you that no matter what you're facing, there is always something worth fighting for, something worth holding on to, and that can make all the difference. When you choose gratitude, you're not ignoring reality, you're choosing how to respond to it. You're choosing to focus on what you have instead of what you lack. You're choosing to celebrate what's here instead of waiting for what's next. And in doing that, you're creating a life that feels full, even in the midst of imperfection. Gratitude doesn't just change how you see the world, it changes how you move through it. So today and every day, take a moment to pause. Take a moment to notice the good. And not just the big, obvious things, but the small, quiet ones too. Because those moments add up. They remind you of what's possible. They remind you of what's beautiful. And they remind you, most of all, that even in the messiness of life, there is always something to be grateful for. Every day is a fresh start. Think about the power in that idea for a moment. No matter what happened yesterday, whether it was a good day, a bad day, or a day you'd rather not think about, it's over. The slate is wiped clean. You have today, this moment, to begin again. And the beauty of that is you don't have to be tied to who you were yesterday. You don't have to carry the weight of yesterday's mistakes, missed opportunities, or regrets. Today is a chance to step forward, to try again, to be better. Not perfect, just better. But here's the challenge. So many of us get stuck in the past. We replay conversations in our heads, relive moments we wish we could change, and carry the burden of choices we wish we'd made differently. It's like dragging around a bag full of rocks that represent guilt, shame, anger, or disappointment. And over time, that bag gets heavier and heavier until it's almost impossible to move forward. But the thing is, you're the one carrying it. And you're the one who can choose to set it down. That's what a fresh start is about. It's not about erasing the past or pretending it didn't happen. It's about deciding that the past doesn't get to define what happens next. You do. Every morning you wake up with a choice. You can let yesterday's story dictate today's actions, or you can write a new chapter. That's not always easy. There are days when the past feels like it's pressing down on you, when the mistakes or failures or hurts are all you can think about, but those moments are where your power lies. Because even then, you have the ability to decide, will I let this define me? Or will I use it to grow? Will I let it keep me stuck, or will I take a step forward, even if it's a small one? Starting fresh doesn't mean you ignore what you've been through. It means you learn from it. You take the lessons, the growth, the resilience you've built, and you carry those forward. The rest, you leave behind, because carrying the weight of everything that's gone wrong won't make you stronger. It will just slow you down. Strength comes from recognizing that you're more than your mistakes, more than your failures, more than the things that didn't go the way you hoped. Because seeing yourself stronger in the process of carrying on is the most important part of leadership. Strength comes from choosing to move forward anyway. The truth is, every fresh start is an act of courage. It's saying, I'm not going to let fear of the past or uncertainty about the future hold me back. It's taking a deep breath and stepping into the unknown, trusting that you have what it takes to handle whatever comes next. And yes, it's scary. Starting fresh means letting go of what's familiar, even if what's familiar isn't serving you. It means opening yourself up to possibility. And with possibility comes risk. But it's worth it. Because staying stuck is a risk too. And the cost of staying stuck is far greater than the cost of trying and failing. Sometimes the fresh start isn't about making a big dramatic change. It's about the small, quiet decisions you make every day. It's about choosing to show up with a little more kindness, a little more patience, a little more determination. It's about forgiving yourself for the times you fell short and giving yourself permission to try again. It's about recognizing that progress isn't linear and that growth often happens in the messy, imperfect moments when you feel like you're not getting anywhere. Those moments matter. Those moments are where transformation happens. A fresh start doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out. It doesn't mean you have to know exactly where you're going or how you're going to get there. It just means taking the first step, and then the next one, and the next one. It's about trusting that each step, no matter how small, is moving you closer to where you're meant to be. And along the way, it's about giving yourself grace. You're not going to get it right every time. You're not supposed to. A fresh start isn't about being perfect. It's about being willing to try. So here's what I want you to remember. Every morning, you have a choice. You can carry the weight of yesterday, or you can let it go. You can let fear hold you back, or you can take a step forward. You can stay stuck, or you can start fresh. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. Because every day is an opportunity to begin again. Every day is a chance to become more of who you're meant to be. And every day, no matter how imperfect, is a gift.